So here we are, guys, now. We are in sort of using the sort of templates that we have. So you can see these in the Tools and Templates folder, but this is our template for hook writing. So if you're actually doing sort of hook writing, my suggestion is to see if this helps you, again, organize yourself before you write. Again, one of the best things you can do, remember, story is structure, is to spend the time up front organizing the content you're going to include to be in it. For me, the process of that sort of longer story I told you came out of really about 15 minutes of planning. So I'm going to show you how to use the template to get you in this one. So same sort of thing here, and I'm going to sort of show you an example of this one. You just make a copy of the document and write it in this way. So that's kind of the key thing to do. So what I'm going to show you here a little bit how to do is, oops, I'm in the wrong one even. That's hook writing. Let me see if I can get you into the right one. Let's write Nugget writing here. All right, so here we are here in the Nugget writing sort of template. And so again, when you're going to use the Nugget writing template, as we should always sort of do here, is just make a copy. So I'm going to make a copy here. Copy document, and I'm going to, again, sort of show you how I did the same sort of thing here. I'm going to basically write bagel, story, openness, Nugget writing, fall 2019. I'm going to put this as Eric Koester, example. All right, so I'm going to put this back in the folder so you can see it, but again, you would put this in your individual folder in this way. So what you'll see here in the template is that it's sort of, again, organized in a way where you write the story up top and you wind up, again, organizing yourself below. So it is a little bit like Mad Libs. So it's designed as a way that you can sort of fill in the blanks. And so what we're going to do is start with the bottom portion of it to fill it in. So as you remember, we've got my inspiration story here. And so this is sort of the bagel shop, bagel story, my inspiration story. And then the key quote here is we use honey water in that way. All right, and then my key lesson, as I laid out here, is the power of openness. And then my examples, right? I've got these sort of examples and things in it, however you want to do. My personal example was Shiv. Example 1 was Chance the Rapper. And then example number 2 in this case was Soylent. And then example number 3 that I've got in this one is I was going to use the story of Brian Johnson. And then I've got my expert here, which I sort of looked at, and I sort of identified this sort of expert as this guy, Patrick Lencioni. So now what I've got here is I've kind of got the structures. So, lay some things out here, right? Like I may lay out the points in this one is that, he was sort of nervous to share his book. It was about soccer in India. And then this idea, the quote was, won't they just steal it, right? Oops. Sorry about that, I don't know what that is. We'll steal it. All right, so again, I put that one, and again, maybe these other quotes. Again, I would fill this sort of thing out. Just for this case, I'm not going to sort of fill out all the details. You can wind up sort of, again, doing that independently here on the own. But then once you've got these sorts of things here, you'll see very quickly that, turn you on mute here. So what you'll see is sort of once we kind of go after this one, now you can take these pieces and fill it in. So now that I've sort of got this sort of thing is I can basically lay out the story. So as I write it here, I can start my inspiration story. Kind of what sort of got me excited about this story, and I can tell the story. So you want to ask this question here, tell the story a little bit of the inspiration story. So I would write it in this way. When I was 21 years old, I lived in Montreal, Canada. About 2 times a week, I would go to Joe Moreno's bagel shop. It was the most amazing place in town. 20 years later, I'd finally find out why it was so good when Moreno would share the exact recipe on Facebook. I was blown away. Why would someone be so open? And then this is our thing. So, see here, like this sort of question. Ask the question. I wanted to know why Joe felt this was his advantage, or something like that. So now what I've seen in this way, and then I realized I've actually seen an example of this in my own life. And then I sort of tell a few months back, Shiv came into my office. And then again, I can tell that story. And then as I continue to explore, I realized I'd actually seen this in more places. I saw Chance the Rapper on Jimmy Fallon. You know, my friend Brian Johnson shared his investor strategy. And I even realized that Soylent had left the recipe on its site, even though it was selling it now. And the last thing is, like, again, sort of this experts backing it up. There's even data experts, like in the book, The Advantage, Patrick Lencioni says this is says information advantages are no longer how companies are being built. Today, our advantage is our openness. And then tie it back here, sort of in some ways. Sorry about that. I don't know why the internet keeps dropping here, but tie it back at the end and sort of say, and 20 years later, I still know that even though Joe open sourced his recipe, no one can ever make as delicious a bagel. All right, so again, what I basically did here, and I just sort of shorthanded this as you saw, but what you can see is, like, the way to do this one is I wrote 200 words just by kind of organizing my thoughts in this way. And so taking that nugget, and so again, as Audrey sort of shared here, hers may be the story of WeWork, and this sort of quotes that she heard that made her think about it, and then again, a personal story, some other examples, and then again, plugging it into the framework can help you really write something much, much faster. And again, that's the idea behind it, is that oftentimes when we write stories in this way, we still need to have the stories. Like, you don't just want to write a bunch of narrative. If I just said openness is important, it doesn't matter. But if I have this ability to kind of, again, sort of take you through the logic chain to go from this, again, I was inspired by this story and I realized it was a much bigger trend, you can make it into a much more robust story. So, questions or comments from any of you guys here, either live in the room or on the horn? Does that all make sense a little bit? Does it sort of, do you understand how it plays? Does it understand how it works? And again, some people may actually find this approach, they like writing in that way a lot more, because it is a lot more natural than it's a lot more consistent with what you do usually. Again, you'll still need to tell stories, but they may not need to be as robust in that sort of way because they're more anecdotes. Again, I would say you'll still want to try to figure out how to use plots and those sorts of things, but this can be a way to get you sort of a little bit closer. So, questions or anything from anyone? Anyone? Questions? All right. Well, that was sort of the big stuff that we have for today. So the last sorts of things that we're going to do in this sort of time here that we have is I'm going to give you guys some time to kind of work on drafting out a story in this way. So my advice today is to pick a story. Again, sort of go back to, I'm going to go back into the idea here, into the bagel shop story, is identify something that you're interested in. Like, trying to pick a story that you want to write and kind of outline one. And again, what I would suggest here a little bit is I would spend some time and go back into your content index. And again, look for stories that you have something in here that's interesting, but it's sort of like, again, you just can't see it's a full story. It doesn't feel like you could write 800 words on it. And sort of see if you can use that as a nugget. That's kind of the way to do it. And again, oftentimes it comes from an interview that was okay but not great, or something else that comes in that way. And I think what you'll find is when you do it, it'll kind of give you a way to write. Again, some authors find this and they're like, thank God I hated writing in the story plot structure, which you may find this one may be a better fit for you. But again, using some of those elements can really help in that regard. So let's kind of wrap up here the last stuff, and then I'll give you guys some sort of work time to sort of finish off today a little bit. Let me take you back into, let's see if I can stop the share. All right, last couple things here, and then I'll give you guys some time to kind of work as we go.